Hey, what's going on, everybody? About to get this live going. We're going to be doing an hour live with Carly, who is a RN. Let's see if I can pull up her account here for you guys. How's everybody doing today? Where are you guys from? Should be a very, very good live. We have two lives for you today. One with Carly and one with Melissa. They're actually both out of Toronto. That's interesting. I did not realize that was happening. So this is who we are going live with right now when she joins. It's her bio: registered nutritionist, holistic skincare expert. Hopefully we get some more people in this live. This happened to me yesterday too. I wonder why it shows her live.
Welcome, guys. There's Ryan. We'll invite him on. Let's see, I miss it. You know what? We're gonna do it from his feed. So go on over to Stand Up, all one.
She's coming over now. Good afternoon to you too. Where her live go? Oh, sorry, didn't mean to hit that. Send me a request. Oh, here we go. Add. Right. There we go. Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing good.
Oh, it's so nice to finally meet you.
For sure. Is there any echo on your end, or is the volume good?
It's pretty good.
Cool. I just want to make sure everybody in here as well, they get good volume. But there we go. Okay, now people are joining too. For some reason, my account's being censored heavily right now, even with my live videos. It takes a while for people to kind of get notified.
I wonder why that would be.
Right? I always just leave that up for people to freely think.
Wow. I love that. Free thinking and free thinkers. It's It's critical. It's
Yeah,
it's actually it's critical thinking. Free thinking is critical thinking. It's
that's
not
what.
just believing. It's questioning, and it's okay to question the
Yeah,
narrative, right?
that's what conspiracy theorist is. Every time I'm labeled that, I'm like, hey, at least I'm critically thinking, because obviously you're not. You're just believing in whatever the narrative is. Uh-oh. Is she there on your guys' screen? Because it went black on mine. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Perfect. We're
Okay.
back.
I turned my Wi-Fi off. Sometimes it slows it down.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that.
Uh,
I
I
just
get
I
into
wanted to say on the point of critical thinking, when my whole journey started, it's because I started questioning myself first. I didn't start questioning things outside of me. I started questioning the things inside of me, and then it led to bigger questions. So the whole thing is, I'm not just pointing outside and saying, yeah, question that, question that. It's kind of like question your own beliefs and your own limitations. And when you question those like inner stories that keep us playing small, then all of a sudden you realize that you're actually really, really powerful after all. So
yeah.
it's one of the most empowering tools that we can have is critical and free thinking.
Yeah. People, I guess never really understand that about myself, especially is that I do a lot of inward work, and I've done a lot of inward work. People who have known me 10 years ago plus 5 years ago on top of that, I've changed multiple times in my life. I've gone through big transitions in my life. And the reason why I talk the way I talk or talk about what I talk about is because I've seen that within myself. I remember being arrogant. I remember being hard-headed and ignorant to what's really going on. And that's why I talk the way I talk, because that was the way that I had to get approached. And that's how I had my awakening, is having somebody like be that blunt and honest with me. So it's kind of a reflection of who I am and the reason why I talk the way I talk and share the information the way I share. And why I don't put up with other people's bullshit, because I used to have a lot of walls and blockages for that, and now I'm just like, you know what, fuck that. Like, people are gonna hear the truth if they like it or not.
It's a trigger. It's a trigger for most. And remember, it once was a trigger for us too. And I think that that work is ongoing. It's not like, oh yeah, I did that once, I'm good. It's like, no, I'm gonna do a little every day. It's like uber uncomfortable, and I get to see things about myself that I don't love. And then I get to question whether I want to stay the same or to change that, right?
Yeah,
And so, yeah, it's like constantly pivoting. I've died a million times.
for sure. So what is your journey? Let's start with that. Like, I guess a little background on
Okay.
yourself, and what got you into like the awakening and sharing your truth.
Hmm. It's in your name. It was 9/11,
Yeah.
but I can take it a little further. I'll try and keep it short and sweet because I think the awakening is every day when I open my eyes, I awaken anew. So, but I'm a makeup artist by trade, so I was smearing poison on people's faces to like
Wow.
hide their insecurities, right? It's like, oh, let's blanket this, let's put on the mask, and I was surrounded by insecurities, and it was the norm. I just thought, well, I'm surrounded by it, and so that's normal until I started questioning that and reading ingredients at the same time, thinking, wow, there's like a lot of things I can't really pronounce, and I don't want to eat that, but I know as a trained artist that I am eating it because it's going straight into the bloodstream, and that's like aluminum or um, titanium, and there's lead in most conventional cosmetics, let alone the other things, right? So that started me down the journey of the rabbit hole. And a quick little artist story is because we learn color therapy, and in color therapy, sorry, theory, color is therapy, but in color theory, there's opposites, and they're called complementary colors, and green and red were opposite. So
Hmm.
I always really remembered that. If someone had a red pimple, I would use green concealer. And that's why concealer palettes have four colors. Green is always one of them. So I
Okay.
had this crazy thought one day, what if I eat more green? will the redness in my skin go away? Because I had level 10 rosacea. I have clear skin, but I thought it was normal to have rosacea, so I started eating green. The redness started to go away. I asked more questions. I didn't like being surrounded with insecurity. I knew everything had to change, and it was like overnight. I went from really thriving in an industry where I was overpaid, maybe even overworked, and that's okay. If that was my choice, to being a starving student of nutrition. And I went back home. I lived with my parents while I paid for school. It was a year of basically unlearning everything that I thought I knew. And for the first time in my life, really feeling smart and actually falling back in love with who I am. I started feeding my cells differently. I started thinking different thoughts. My social circle changed. The programming that I was taking in started changing. I was having spiritual moments where I knew that I was bigger than this little girl story, and I wanted to heal my wounds. So that's basically how I started. And I still do makeup, for the record. I'm still an artist, and I love working with women. And I'm just much more conscious about it. I use products that are clean and green, and I promote beauty from the inside out.
I like that. Yeah. I think a lot of women have a hard time waking up with what you're talking about and stuff, like the mask that a lot of women put on, all the makeup, and then they don't realize that all the chemicals that are going on them. And then even outside of like the chemicals, it's how are these products tested and stuff, and they're tested on animals and laboratories and so on. And it's like a big thing that women in general really need to understand. On top of like, I think, I forget the percentage, but I used to study this when I was back in college, of like what's the percentage of women buying and men buying, and women hold like a huge power in the buying of products and stuff, the materialism. And it's a big thing that I look for when I look for a woman, or like when I'm talking to women, like to see how awake, like, are they? Like, how much materialism do you hold on to? Because women hold on to a lot of materialism. I know guys, we usually get labeled for that because they wear a watch or they have some kind of jewelry or the car. But it's like men's materialism is tiny compared to women's materialism. Women put on a huge facade, hair color, makeup, eyelashes, boobs, like all the plastic surgery, lip injections. It's a huge facade that women go through. And that's, I'm a big women's right activist. I talk about women empowerment all the time, especially at my events, because I believe in the power of a woman. And when women believe in the power of themselves and how powerful they are, creating life and so on and stuff, that's where the revolution will honestly begin and transform from there. But women don't see the power within themselves, and they hide behind these fake images because they see it on mainstream media, Hollywood, whatever it is and stuff. But yeah, it's powerful that you woke up through that avenue, if you want to say, because that's what holds so many women back, because of all that shit that they put on. Like, if I'm not saying don't do that, because it's like a work of art, like you were saying. The fact that you guys can do all that stuff and create like a beautiful identity through that and a self-expression, there's nothing wrong with that. Just be mindful of like the chemicals and the process of what you're going through. Don't lose yourself in that process, essentially.
We got to do it for the right reasons. If you're doing it for somebody else, that's the wrong reason. If you're doing it for yourself, that's the right reason.
Yeah.
And what feeling does it bring you? And if you're doing it and it feels like a chore versus you're doing it in joy, right? There's so many levels to that. And bless your heart for recognizing women. I mean, we're the center of creation on this planet. Women are a gift and more heart-centered typically, right? And because that's our power chakra. And so when sleeping women wake, mountains fucking move.
Yeah.
And that's part of my soul purpose, actually. And I love men, but my work is with women and goddesses, because every single woman is a goddess, is a queen. And if she forgets it, I will remind her. And it's funny, right? Because I give compliments and I give them wholeheartedly. I'm not faking anybody. We're both truthers here. If I call a woman a queen, it's because she's a queen, and she'll deflect it. And that's okay. You know, deflect it. But just receive it. And if, you know, if someone else calling you beautiful isn't received, then that's evidence that there's something wounded inside of you. There is something unhealed that needs focus and a narrowing down on, so you can let that go, let that story go. So I'm all about queens supporting queens, queens recognizing queens. I think it's that you're right. You said something about the revolution will be the inner evolution of both men and women. But
for sure, it's just somebody saying in the comments, you know, like, shouldn't women have the right to choose or something like that? For sure, it's just being mindful of your actions, just like a man has to be mindful of his actions, the way he holds himself and treats himself and so on. You can't start a revolution if you're not healing yourself. If you're attached to materialism or plastic surgeries, because even guys get shit done like that, there's never going to be a revolution of self if you're going down that materialism type of ideology. It's not saying not to have freedom of choice. You could do all those things and still be mindful of all the choices that you're taking. That's all we're talking about here for anybody here who's not comprehending the message. That's always an issue, is some people just don't understand the depths of what we're talking about. They're very surface level in the awakening, and anytime you get this deep into conversation, it's like it's over their fucking head. They can't comprehend what we're talking about.
when a wave comes, go deep.
Yeah, for sure. Dive under that thing or dive in it.
Yeah. You know what? Interestingly enough, you said something about men and surgeries. The number one of the top performed surgeries right now is actually male breast reduction. It's not a breast enhancement for a woman. It's breast reduction for a man, which leads down a whole, like, there's a hormone discrepancy happening as a result of the toxins, I think, that we're talking about. We're not meant to absorb all these toxins, and they're interfering with the endocrinology system of the body. You know, women have estrogen, right? There's over 52 different kinds of estrogen, but if we're encountering chemicals, toxins from the outside that are unrecognizable, they're xeno from the outside, xenoestrogens. How does our body recognize them? How does our liver break them down? It doesn't. So they continue to circulate and percolate, and you know, these estrogens are giving men breasts. They're giving underage children who shouldn't have breasts at 5, 6, 7. We're seeing it though. It's pretty crazy.
It's like a 13-year-old from a 21-year-old at times. I'm like, what the fuck happened here? When I was 13 years old, I looked like I was 13 years old. Same with women.
Yeah.
We looked like we were 13. Now you're like, is this girl 18 or like, what the fuck happened here? And yeah, the whole male thing, there's a massive agenda. It's probably the biggest agenda to demasculate men at the end of the day, because we are the ones, we're the protectors, we're the providers, we're the one that's going to hold it down for the family, if you want to say. And they know if they could demasculate the men's role, that they can control the family, they can control whatever it is. And that's why they put estrogen in raw meats and stuff like that. They forcibly inject these animals with that. It's a whole agenda behind it. So I'm grateful that you brought that up, because most people don't realize that, like, there's a huge agenda to demasculate men, and there's an agenda to masculate women. There's the agenda to disconnect us from our true selves. That's essentially what it is.
Yeah, the harmony between the polarities that each of us have that needs to be synchronized, right? I can totally see how they're doing that. And it's starting at a really young age. You know, those shows that our parents grew up with, like Leave It to Beaver, and you see the stereotypical 5, 6-year-old boy, and he's fairly innocent, and you know, has a good nature and wants to go out and swing a bat. And then you look at the depiction of 5, 6, 7-year-old boys now, and they're wearing nail polish and lipstick. Fine, to each their own. I understand that all for one, one for all, and if that's free will, that's questionable, because there's some signals being misfired and being misrepresented and misunderstood at a chemistry level of the body. So on that note, I feel like women who are being more androgynous, and that's cool too, but that's not allowing them to really hone in on that heart magic that I was talking about. Because when a woman like myself is faced with an energy that's not feminine, right, not nurturing, not of that loving nature, it's aggression, then I have to step out of my feminine, and I have to deal with this aggression, and I too become aggressive. Well, guess what? That's not my strength. It takes me way out of my balance, and then it's hard for me with ruffled feathers to jump right back into my heart, right? So then my trajectory period changes my mood, and my mood changes my disposition, and that becomes my personality. And it's just like, that's who you wake up one day and you're like, who am I? And this happens to mothers all the time. They're 45 years old. They wake up one day and they're like, who am I?
No, I mean, it's powerful what you're saying. You're talking about how powerful our thoughts are right now, and how our thoughts literally create our reality. And I used to go through this. I always said, why am I always so angry? Why am I always so mad? Why when I get mad do I resort to violence? Like, this isn't who I am. This isn't like the child version of myself and stuff. Like, when you're a child, you're loving, you're happy, you're creative, and so forth. And then it's like the older you get in this matrix, the more angry you get. And I wanted to speak on that real quick, because what people don't understand is, just because what the matrix says is freedom of expression doesn't mean that's true freedom of expression. Most people who are expressing themselves are really just expressing the subconscious programming that they have seen through television and all this stuff. Because I'm a nature guy at the end of the day. I love spending hours, days, weeks out in nature. When you're in nature, you have a different thought process. You don't see men fucking putting nail polish on or eyeliner on or covering up their blemish. That's not what a man's role is at the end of the day. When you put yourself back into the natural nature state of human beings and stuff, and outside of the indoctrinations, industrial revolution, matrix type mentality, you realize the roles of both a man and a woman. When you're out there camping for a week, the man's role is to cut down that tree, to get firewood, whether you're hunting or whatever it is in that situation, that's the man's role. And then the woman's role is to help at the site, to, provide help with the shelter, the cleanliness, prepping the food, cleaning. We work in synergy like that. And that's really where it comes down to. But people are so distracted with the technology and the TV and all this shit that they're so disconnected from what truly happens. And then they are in a fearful state when shit hits the fan, kind of like where we are now. They're like, what do I do? Oh my God, the grocery store is going to close down. There's no food, this and that. I'm like, it's because you're disconnected. If you were educated or connected to your true self, you know exactly what to do. And that's, growing your own food, where to go. Most people don't even know the sun rises in the east and sets in the fucking west, for crying out loud. And they want to have a conversation of what is natural, or how they can express themselves. And I'm like, if you can't tell me if the sun rises, or you can't even show me where the sun sets and rises, I don't want to have a conversation with you on what's natural or not, because you have no fucking clue of what you're talking about.
As soon as you said nature, I literally felt my heartbeat slow down. It was like, even just the thought of green and water, sounds of water, it changes the biochemistry of the body on an instant, right? And as soon as that sun rises, our hormones start the fluctuation process, peristalsis starts to kick. I mean, it's so all connected. We're intricately a part of it. It's not just a platform that we stand on. It's got a living soul. you know, and we're part of its consciousness fields. So yeah, I felt you talking about nature, and I was like, yes, I feel it. Very, very true. It's like we've completely disconnected. We've become accustomed to concrete walls and electricity, and that's I'm all for electricity. But I can hear the little buzz, and I can feel the almost the pains at the back of my eyes from fluorescent lights. You
Yeah.
can almost see like it's got a very subtle strobe-like effect. It's not warm like the sun rays have that seminal force that like it feeds your skin, and you could like literally feel your bones getting stronger type of deal, whereas this pains the back of your eye and makes your eyes all dry and tight and tired. So we've completely gone from one direction to another. It used to be mandatory, by the way. I really like this fact. It used to be mandatory for the very first Olympians, which was in Greece, the Greek Olympians, to sunbathe. It was
Wow.
mandatory. They had to, because that meant that it would peak their performance, and everybody really wanted a good show, right? So they had to, and there was proper protocols. I just want to say that you don't go out in high noon and bake yourself, but there's a proper protocol to have this really healthy dynamic relationship with that burning, um, basically cosmic force that fuels the whole earth. The flowers open themselves up as to flirt with the sun, and the sun feeds the flowers, and it feeds
Plants
our
literally grow
bodies.
where the sun is. You could watch plants literally shift their entire, makeup
Yeah.
to face the sun to grow and all that. I mean, that's source. That's what we call God. I mean, there's higher things than the sun as being God. There's definitely other vibrations and frequencies out there that go under that listing. But that's the true natural step of mankind, humankind, whatever you want to label it as and stuff. And yeah, I guess to go full circle with it, like if people want to hold the conversation of what's natural or what's real self-expression, like you have to have an understanding of what nature is and what survival is out in nature. Because if you've never done that before and been out there and focused on the sunlight and the moonlight and feeling the wind and like you were mentioning the earthing and all that stuff, you have no idea what is actual natural. Your mindset's just in the matrix, and everything the matrix has ever shown you subconsciously or consciously and stuff, you're just basing your ideologies on that. That's why inward work is so important, asking you those questions of like, why do I act or react to certain situations this way? Why do I think this way and all that? And that's like the most important thing. And a lot of people, I've I guess me being in this position as Standup911 and one of the first truthers, I've learned that a lot of people, even on Instagram or in this movement, they just talk a big game. They're able to create really good content, repost memes, but outside of that, they're so disconnected. They have no idea of like the conversation that we're having right now about nature and survival and all those different roles. And it's a big thing from my perspective is if I'm going to hold a conversation with you, or if you're going to be on this level of educating people and being a leader, you should be a leader. You should understand how to provide for people. Do you know how to build shelter? Do you even know how to find water? Do you know how to filter water when you find the water? Do you know how to, I'm vegan now, but I'm an ex-hunter, but do you know how to hunt? Do you know how to stay quiet? Do you know how to follow footsteps? Do you know how to look for stool, poop, and stuff like that to see what animals are in the area? There's a lot of stuff that goes into being a leader in this movement, and sadly, most people aren't on that level. They just know how to create content and share fucking information, which is good in its own, but it only goes so far.
I love a good shit in the woods. You have to poo outside. Until you do, you actually have no idea how
Haven't
deep that
lived.
connection really is. It's like that was the very first thing that ever happened before there was a toilet.
Yeah.
There was that, right?
It's the ultimate connection. When you go pee and poop in the woods or in nature, like that's the ultimate connection right there. Like staring up at the stars while you're doing that, it's the most beautiful shit ever. Funny.
But you know, um, I hope I don't take us and pivot completely down a different rabbit hole, but so you're very in tune. You're doing the work. You realize that you are a spirit having a human experience, and anybody who is in alignment with that, as I am, seems to have a very different perception of what's happening in our reality right now. And I'm not about dividing. I'm about unity because together we rise. And it's like this is why I speak truth. And sometimes it's like I may be aggressive in my approach because the truth is a big hard pill to swallow. It's like learning about chemtrails and 9/11. Holy shit, that one stung a little bit, right? And then you take your power back. You don't keep giving it away. It's like I'm now I know. Okay, now I know. So now that you know, and what is happening? What's happening in our reality right now? Because there's a few different stories and storylines, and
Yeah.
I'm very curious as to like what's the story behind the story.
I mean, so getting into like a little backstory, what's the most frustrating is most people kind of know 9/11's an inside job now. I feel like kind of the vast majority of people are on that wavelength, but the same people who understand 9/11's an inside job are still watching mainstream media. They're still believing what the politics are talking about. They still believe in the false science narrative of things. And that's the most frustrating shit ever. It's like, at what point are we going to stop feeding the industry that's lying to us? And it just doesn't make sense. Like, people will unfollow me in a second the moment they disagree with something, but they disagree with mainstream media all the time, and they're still addicted to everything they're saying. And it's like, at what point are we going to shift that mindset? If you don't agree with mainstream media, with the lies, with whatever's going on with the economy or this virus, when are you going to stop fueling it? And what I mean by stop fueling it is, when are you going to stop engaging in it? Stop participating. Stop feeding it to your energy. But yeah, like, to answer your question, that's a long question to answer, by the way, because there's a lot of shit that's going on right now. But you know, what we're seeing is a huge power grab, and I don't mean a power grab from the government. It's more or less the corporations and the private human beings, if you want to say, that are running the corporations, that are running the government and all that. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's what I've been talking about for the last 10 years. That's what this photo right here represents. These are slaves, human beings, holding the monopoly board with the private individuals right here that are controlling everything. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's what we've been talking about, or I've been talking about for the last decade, and people like David Wolf and David Icke and so on who have been talking about it for the last 20, 30 years. Is we're seeing the agendas come full circle right now. And the reason why they're coming full circle right now is because individuals like myself, you, and everybody who is finally using their voice to speak up, they're realizing that the tides are changing right now, that people are standing up and they're losing their power, this monopoly board. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's why there's more people than ever. I think everybody in this chat room, and you and yourself included, are seeing more people questioning the narrative now than ever before. And 9/11 was a big stepping stone for that. And so were all the other false flag attacks as well, from now to 9/11 and before 9/11, as people are waking up right now. And because of that, there's a huge shift in consciousness. There's a huge positive, energetic shift that's happening. And these people who control everything, they understand energy. They understand vibration, frequency, cymatics. They understand that. They're the ones that are hiding and holding this information back from humanity. So they understand that they have to push right now. They have to put so much fear out there to try to suppress us. But I don't think what they realize is that you can never stop the light at the end of the day. When there's truth, wisdom, compassion, love, empathy, and so forth, and when that information, that vibration is sent out, you can never take that away from people. So the more resistance that they create, the more light that they're creating. It just sucks because there's a lot of pushback, and they're killing, and there's a lot of people suffering right now. but ultimately their plan's going to fail. And they know that. And they're trying to go to the extreme to stop that from happening. But at the end of the day, we're gonna win. If you want to say the light is going to win, there's no stopping it. And what I mean by win, I don't mean a utopia. I mean there's going to be balance restored in the universe or on Earth. There's going to be a shift now where there's always going to be negative. It's just how everything works. As above, so below. Positive, negative, magnets, whatever it is. There's always that balance, or there's always that pushback and pull. But there's going to be a balance now. There hasn't been a balance for a very long time. Like, we started this conversation off with women. Women have been oppressed since like the Mayans, Aztecs, and Egyptians. Like, there used to be queens, literally used to be queens. There used to be a partnership of masculine and feminine energy controlling, ruling over people, which I don't agree with at the end of the day. But there was a divine masculine and feminine role. Now it's just been pretty much white Europeans essentially ruling shit for a very long time. That phase is, that like sail has shifted, if you want to say. So it's just, we have to stay grounded in the time like this. And I mean that for the people who are waking up right now or who have woke up. You have to stay grounded and understand that all this chaos is because there's a mass awakening. And it's also a time to use your fucking voice. And just by speaking out, or just by supporting people who are speaking out, we could do so much more. And that's a whole nother like kind of tangent here, but I get fed up with like how fast people will support a celebrity, support a corporation, support whatever it is out there. But then you got people like me who have literally dedicated every single day. I haven't gone a day in the last 10 years of not speaking my truths, not waking up people, but not answering a DM and inspiring somebody or making somebody feel like they're not alone. Every single day I've done that for the last 10 years. And yet I'm the one struggling. I'm the one that's trying to make ends meet. And I get so frustrated with that because it's so simple to like, comment, share, to buy a product that literally supports your well-being, your health, your family, your animals. Like, everything that I'm a part of, that I rep, all the businesses that I support, are people who are also dedicating themselves to the betterment of humanity, who are going above and beyond to provide the best quality products or the best services, whatever it may be. And I just get fed up. It's like, yo, when are we going to take control of our future? When are we going to support people who actually give a shit? Because they'll be the first one in line to go to that stupid concert and support some fucking stupid celebrity who's talking nonsense, who could give two fucks about you in the audience. But then when Standup911 asks for like a donation, or asks, to buy a product that's going to fucking help you and heal you, which I know I'm not allowed to say, but I say shit all the time. They'll question that. They'll be like, should I buy this product? But no, I'll buy that Nike, that Air Jordan, or I'll buy that $500 ticket to watch some guy shoot a fucking ball in a hoop and stuff. It's the whole matrix.
Yeah, it's value. I think what one of the blessings in this is that I have so much more clarity on what I truly value, and it's different than obviously what it was 2 months ago. It changes every single day. But we cast a vote with every dollar spent. So we have to really start voting wisely with our dollars, and also with our time, where we're spending our time. Are we spending time with people who pretend to like us? Are we, spending time in front of a television, right, that's programming your mind? Either you're programming your mind, or it's being programmed at you, for you, so you're kind of regurgitating information on what was told to you, right?
It's not even their dollar obviously matters, but it's your lifestyle, how you treat people, how you talk to people, how you talk about yourself, how you treat yourself. When you are spending time, like you were just saying, what are you spending your time on? Are you just watching brainless videos, or are you educating yourself? Are you empowering yourself? Are you learning? Like, that's how we create change. Like, it's as simple as commenting, and sharing goes so fucking far, because when you comment and share, you're also sharing that information with other people. You're raising awareness. You're spreading that light, that love, that empowerment and stuff. It's our actions that create, you know, the ripples and so on top of the dollar. You stop supporting these corporations, these big tech companies, and start rerouting that energy into people who give a shit, and that's how you create the shift. But most people don't want to believe, and this kind of goes full circle again, like what you started off with. They don't believe in themselves. They don't believe in the power within themselves. They are always believing in external things like the celebrities, like the different makeups and walls and stuff. And that goes for men and women and stuff. They're always believing in some kind of external force, whether it's some profit or whatever the fuck it may be, instead of looking within themselves and creating that change.
We have gravely mistaken actors for heroes, and education with indoctrination.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all of the top universities, and I think it's fabulous that people care to go out and get an education. I read books, you know, I went to a few different colleges. I've never been to a university. Some of the top universities around the world are basically contrived and controlled by a small subset of people. So the information that you're learning at these high level, high respected institutions that cost a lot of money is you're almost like you're buying into a little club. And
yeah.
And these are the people that we see on a lot of major panels, a lot of top leaders and politicians around the world that are touting and plugging in these businesses.
Yeah.
The hospital, that's a business. The education system, that's a business,
Yeah.
Right? We're separating the two. We're looking at the hospital as a healthcare facility as opposed to a business. We have to just like forget that we think because we were born there, right? So this is my theory. Most of us were born in a hospital. So where's the first place you're going to run when anything goes wrong? It's like, it's the little duckling syndrome. That's exactly what it is. So that's also part of design. Yeah. It's like, it's lifetimes, it's decades and it's decades, and it's really big, you know, the depth of this. But I always try to keep it light for myself because I know that it always works out. And I'm also writing this just as an observer. I'm observing other people's reactions and I'm like, okay, wow. Didn't realize that about you, and it's triggering me. Okay, wow, I didn't realize this about myself. What do I have to do internally to like diffuse the bomb so when other people outside of me react in a certain way that I don't like, that I can, you know, have a tool to disassemble my reaction so it becomes a little bit more reflective. It becomes a little bit more of a reflection point as opposed to a reaction. It's just like I'm observing so much happening all around and inside of me right now that it's really important, like you were saying, to stay grounded, like physically grounded. I get my bare feet in the soil and the sand. I'm like plugging into the earth. But I'm also just grounding through my thoughts, and I'm not letting my thoughts run off too much because, you know, as researchers and truthers, that there's a lot of different rabbit holes. And I actually have a question for you.
Go for it.
In regards to one of these rabbit holes. So, you know, I've talked about vaccinations probably ad nauseum. So I'm not anti-vax. I just think that the time that they're pushing it is unreasonable. Yeah. I'm wondering, because I've talked about microchipping, more than an insult to humanity is the chipping, the RFID chip. So I'm wondering if you can talk about that a little bit and what that might mean and all the things, like the universe of that chip that's going to be inside if that agenda happens.
So like the ultimate agenda with RFID chips, like as far as they want to take this, as far as like going deep down the rabbit hole, is they want to download the human consciousness, and they want to be able to read every little signal that our body puts out, because our nervous system, right, our brains and our nervous system use frequencies, vibrations, and that's how we know we're in pain. That's how we know whatever, all the imbalances or so forth that's going on. when they're using an RFID chip and they're plugging that into our nervous system and into our bodies, now it's reading everything. It's reading how our thoughts are affecting our consciousness, our emotions, our body temperature, everything like that. And with that information, they can upload that to AI, to, you know, a computer, to a robot, whatever it may be. And now that robot can now have an understanding how the human acts, reacts, thinks, every little element of our subconscious and conscious mind. That's the ultimate agenda with the RFID chips, is to get to this AI technology. I'm just really quick gonna just put a couple people on blast real quick, accounts on there. That's why I don't agree with Project Knowledge and Forbidden Knowledge. So they're two accounts that have constantly pushed AI technology since day one, and I do not respect them whatsoever, because they push this AI technology bullshit, you know, scenario, and they don't understand what they're pushing at the end of the day. But to get back to, you know, what you're talking about, the RFID chips are also going to affect, you know, it's pretty much what Skynet is in China. So if you guys aren't aware of Skynet, look into that. But essentially, Skynet is reading the people's body temperatures, their credit score, what they're liking on Facebook, what they're talking about on or social media in general. It's doing all these different things, and then it kind of gives them a credit score, and then it rates you as that. And then from there, they can dictate where you live, where you work, what loans you're accessible to, and so on. And that's the route that we're going to. This is what gets into systematical oppression. I feel like I'm the only one that ever talks about systematical oppression, because people don't understand that the system that we're in has been designed to oppress certain people at certain times more than other people at certain times. And that's why this is where the matrix comes from. This is where poverty comes from, Section 8 comes from. This is where, oh, I'm forgetting the term right now, but back in the 80s and 90s and earlier than that, it was legal for the banks to give certain people loans, and other people, essentially people of color, couldn't get accepted of bank loans or mortgages as a white person could. It's called a red bank or a red note or something along that lines. I'm forgetting the terminology here, but that's systematical oppression. Depending on the color of your skin, depending on the neighborhood that you grew up in or that you currently live, they wouldn't give people a loan to move out of the Section 8 poverty areas to move into a suburb or a rural area and stuff. They wanted to keep those people in those areas. That's why it's called a project, first off. It was literally a project to see what would happen if they kept people of color in a specific area and then brought in drugs, brought in alcohol, brought in all the fast food and all these different corporations things. They wanted to see what would happen to society in those neighborhoods. And then we see what happens: violence, dysfunctional families, you know, all the different elements that happen in the poverty areas. And I grew up in a poverty area. I grew up in an area full of alcohol, drugs, prostitution, strip clubs, and so on. And then when I moved out of that environment and I made it here to Arizona, left New Jersey, came out here to Arizona, and I saw the suburbs and I saw the different way of life and how neighbors trusted and treated and respected each other, how much it changed my reality. I was like, wow, they literally want to keep people of color in the hood for a fucking reason and stuff. Because the moment people start empowering and embracing each other, that's where a revolution happens. And not to keep going on a tangent here, but what people don't realize is SWAT was literally created, or the FBI and SWAT was literally created to kind of to, what is it called? Why am I forgetting the word right now? Damn it, to pretty much dismantle the Black Panthers, the mob, the Irish mob, the Italian mob, the Russian mob, and all this stuff. Because what mobs were, and I'm not trying to say that they were perfect people at the end of the day, just like the government isn't perfect, but the mobs and these Black Panthers, they were uniting people. They were bringing families together. They were empowering each other. They were feeding each other. Now, granted, there was violence within those organizations, but they also were creating strongholds for people in those areas. And that's when SWAT came around to dismantle those organizations. That's why the drug trade and all these different organizations now are all run by the FBI and CIA, because they knew there was big money in those industries, but they also knew that if they could dismantle pretty much a local militia, they can control and manipulate people. Because Black Panthers, for example, were educating Black people, they were feeding Black people, they were embracing Black culture, Black history. And obviously this country, the United States anyway, I know you're in Canada, was built on racism at the end of the day, an indigenous holocaust. It killed millions of indigenous people. So the foundation of this country has always been to dismantle Black or Native or people of colors, pretty much their communities at the end of the day. So this gets into like everything that we were just talking about: systematical oppression, learning about the truth of oneself, the empowerment of oneself, learning real history, not his story, but actual history of our cultures and where we come from. At the end of the day, I'm an activist for all. I'm an activist for women. I'm an activist for men. I'm an activist for animals. I'm an activist for Earth. And most importantly, I'm an activist for culture and understanding where we come from. And that's why I have so much like love and respect for somebody like, say, like chakabars, who it's pretty much a love-hate relationship when it comes to social media with chakabars, because people don't understand how much Black people or people of color have gone through. You and I, our last names have weight to it, have heritage, have culture to it. Black people have white people's last names. What that does to the subconscious, the psyche of an individual, we will never understand, because we understand when I hear my last name, when somebody says my last name, I think about my great grandfathers and grandmothers and how that lineage came and where they came from and their own struggles to get here and all that stuff. But when you think of a Black person with the last name Thomas or Jefferson or Washington or whatever, those were their slave owners. You know what that does to the subconscious, the psyche of people, on top of their history being lied and destroyed and manipulated and so on and stuff. So yeah, that's why I'm a huge activist for everybody pretty much on this earth that has gone through some form of oppression because of individuals right here who are controlling and suppressing information. It's why I'm a truther. It's why I share information on the daily, so I can empower people, so these people could stop controlling and manipulating people.
You just reminded me of a story. You know the song Amazing Grace?
Yeah.
Do you know how it came to be?
I want to say it was from white slave owners, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. So I believe it was Captain John Newton, and he was a captain of a boat, and his job was to go to Africa, clobber the biggest, most capable Black slaves, and then bring them back on the boat. And so they're doing a haul back. They've got many Black slaves, and of course the slaves are kept under, they're not, where the rest of the crew is hanging out. So they're in hanging out with the rats behind a locked door and probably sitting in filth. And they so torrential rain started happening, and then they started hitting like 10-foot waves, and they all thought that they were going to die. And Captain John Newton made all the crew go in that little hut where the slaves were. And all of the slaves were very peaceful. And they formed a circle, right? The uniting. And they were singing something in their tongue language. And it was so beautiful. For a moment, the whole crew forgot that they were going to die. And it was such a moment that was so touching that Captain John Newton said, basically on the spot, if we live to see another day, I'm going to turn this ship around and I'm going to change my life and the direction that it's heading. And sure enough, the sun came out, the clouds parted, there was stillness in the ocean, and true to his word, he did. He turned that ship around. and then basically spent the rest of his life doing the right thing, overcompensating for, you know, what the first half of his life was. And he had that song translated, and it's what we all now know as Amazing Grace.
That's awesome.
And so as I was listening to you say that story, I could hear, I could feel like the resonance of that song, because why wouldn't they oppress one of the, you know, when you look at genetics of Black people, my good God, like they are strong,
Yeah.
they are fast, they're agile and coordinated. And so it seems to me like there's a genetic upgrade.
They've also developed so much technology that they never get credit for and stuff. They are the pioneers in damn near everything, but they never get credit for that. There's always some white dude that gets credit for it. Like, they create so much technology and never get credit for it. And I just want to mention, I see a comment here, and this girl's so right. Black history does not begin with slavery, and she is so fucking right. It's so racist that people always think that Black people come from slavery. First, and to piggyback what you're saying, the Constitution of America, that actually came from Native Americans. Native Americans had a constitution, and that's what they followed. And then Europeans took what they had as a constitution, reworded it, rewrote it, and made it their own, which is now what our Constitution is. And that goes with damn near every aspect of religion, history, whatever it is. Europeans were taking what was already existed, manipulating it, rewording it, rewriting it, whatever it was, and making it their own. Everything that we have in a society came from people of color, whether it's Black people or just whatever, people in color and stuff. And it gets frustrating, especially here in America, where everything's always credited to white people at the end of the day. It's almost 90% of technology is always credited to white people. And it's like, yo, like, do you realize that they had this technology back in the day? They knew what mathematics was. They knew how to create, like, and as far as technology, I mean, like, physical technology as well, like ladders, shovels, you know, all the tools and necessities it is to create a civilization, to create a town, a city, and so on. They were doing this shit well before Europeans were doing it. It's not a new fucking thing. The only thing, like, Europeans in a sense discovered was more of the industrial side of things, but that's still not necessarily true, because when you really dig into information, Black people were the blacksmiths and all that stuff, because they were the workers. They were the like, not the traders, but like, they knew all the trades and stuff. And Black people are the ones that were creating all the modern technology and stuff. It's just sad how much, like, credit or whatever you want to say is not given to the people who helped advance humanity and civilization. And then, you know, these people, even in today's society, you know, they're looked at uneducated, pathetic, you know, they're gunned down in the streets, abused, and all this stuff. And it's fucking frustrating, because if you really study American history, and if you're really a proud American, you would understand how much Black culture and Native Americans and just people of color really provided for this country at the end of the day. By the way, it says we have 1:30 left. We'll end this, but we'll continue, because I can tell we have a lot more to talk about and stuff. So okay. If you're cool with that, I can tell you want to talk more. We'll
I'm totally
just going.
That's crazy. Time flies.
Yeah, I'm always going to use my privilege at the end of the day, and I understand and acknowledge with my skin that I'm fucking privileged. And I'm always going to use my privilege to speak out for other people, whatever it is and stuff. So I'm always going to be that person. I think that's why I get along with chakabars and people like Raspy Rouse and people who are dedicating themselves to Black empowerment and stuff, because they're going against an entire, like, empire of suppression and oppression and so on and stuff, and they're hated for it. But I embrace those people a lot. I have nothing but love and respect for people who are teaching, you know, real history.
I don't see skin color. It's when you look into people's eyes being the window to the soul, it's like souls recognize souls, right? There's this instant recognition, and it takes like you looking into your own eyes, start in the mirror, right? And when you do that and you're able to see that within yourself, then absolutely it's as above so below. You're able to do it, period. But you started with yourself.